In this video, I'm going to go through how to create a terrain model in VectorWorks using data from GoogleEarth Pro. So the first step to do this is to open up GoogleEarth Pro, and in the top search bar there, you can type in the address of the place you want to map. And it will zoom into that property. And I'm going to use a polyline to get the topographical information from GoogleEarth Pro, which is the latitude, the longitude, and the elevation, and also an image that I can import into VectorWorks to use as reference for my design. And I can also scale my image by taking a measurement of distance from this map. The first thing I'm going to do is to create the polyline, and that's going to create all the topographical information that I need. So to do that, if I go up to the top there's an add a path, and that brings up a pop-up menu where you can title it. Move that over there. I'm going to title it study site. And when you're doing this, whatever you create in your topographical map and import into VectorWorks, it will be easier to line it up to your maps and to line up different images and cut it all to particular dimensions. If when you create the map, you try to get the outline of the site as accurately as possible. So if this was the place that I was trying to map, and you get this polyline tool, try to go around the outside of it very carefully. And then when you import it and you line it up to the maps, it will be a lot easier. In this case, I am only going to do a circle instead of the whole site. So to draw a circle, you select the ruler up the top there and the circle option. And I'm going to go to the center of my study sites and get a 100-meter radius out from that. That's my study area there. And then if I go up to that polyline tool again, I'll just enable that again. And then I can start tracing around inside that. And then each one of these yellow dots is going to be a topographical point, and it will give me information on the latitude, longitude, and elevation for each one. So if the site is more topographically varied, it's good to have more of these. And if like in this case, it's quite a flat site, so you don't quite need so many. But it's a good idea to go around the outside as carefully as you can, maybe zoom in a bit. If you select something else, you got to click it a few times before it selects. And I've got the outline of the shape nicely. I'll just roughly map this. I'm not going to be too fussy, but the more of these points you get, the more accurate your map will be. Okay, so when you're happy, you select OK there, and it will pop up on your left display bar the site that you've got, and you need to save that. I'm going to save that on my desktop at the study site, and it's going to save that as a KMZ or a KMZ file. Now I can't import this KMZ file or a KMZ file into VectorWorks, so what I need to do is convert it to a text file, and I do that with a GPS visualizer online site. So there it is there, GPS visualizer. and I'll choose the this study area. That's the KNZ file there, and I want to convert it to a plain text. So that's the output there, a plain text, and I'll convert and add elevation. So it's done it there for me now, and you can see it's the latitude, longitude, and altitude. So it's that information that will allow me to create a topographical map with it. So I'll go to download, and I'll open this file in Excel. It doesn't have to be Excel, but what I need to be able to do, so I'll just open the file that I saved. So I was in the downloads, and I'll just change that to any file. So I just downloaded from that GPS Visualize the Sites, this text file. So there's there in my downloads, and I'm going to open that in Excel. And go finish. Now the reason I did this was I only want the numbers information to import into VectorWorks. If I also include these titles of the columns and these extra information, VectorWorks won't like that, it will confuse it. So it just wants to have numbers in the import. So in Excel, I can delete that extra information. And you can do this in other programs too, but it's just easier for me to do it in Excel. So I'll save that on my desktop, and I'll save that as an Excel file. You can import it as a text file or an Excel file, but I've had a bit more luck with Excel files, so I'll save it as that. But yeah, VectorWorks you can import as a text file or an Excel workbook. Okay, so I'll put that on my desktop, and I'll call this study area import to VectorWorks. Okay, and you also got to make sure you close this down, because if you try to import this file while it's still open, VectorWorks won't like that either. So I'll just close down all these things now, which I don't need anymore. And then open VectorWorks. Now in VectorWorks, I've got some layers here, and let's move that down here. So I've got this one, the default first layer. I'm going to label this as map layer. Well, actually, I'll call this terrain map. And I'll edit this one to 1 to 1,000 as my scale. And because I want to import this topographical information, you've got to also edit it as georeferenced. And if I select advanced georeferencing, it gives me different options to set that georeferencing. And what's important is that you select the georeferencing for your area. So for New Zealand, the best one is this New Zealand GD 2000. And also select, I'll just move and rotate all geometry as a group. What that means is that information that I've imported into VectorWorks from the Excel file, that will orientate it correctly for New Zealand. So I'll select OK. And then I'll also create another design layer here, and I'll just call this the site image. And let's make sure it's the same scale, which it is. That's good. So I'm going to import an image from my site and also that terrain map. So I'll start with the terrain map first. So I'll select that layer and I'll go to landmark and survey import survey file, and go to my desktop and select that study area import file. And make sure my file type is Excel. If I pick the data up here, it looks good. So I've got my latitude, longitude, and elevation. And I need to also select 3D locus objects and then import that. Now, when it does import it, it does tend to locate it a little bit far away from this page that you're working in. So I'll just zoom out a little bit to try to find it. And here it is here, but the page itself is located between these two zeros. So to move it back to where that page is, I just need to select the information there, and then select this one, which is Move by Points tool. So if I select the georeference data, and then I line it up to these two zeros, that will move it to where that page is. And you need to do this a couple of times, because when you're zoomed right out, it's hard to get it that accurate. Okay, so I'll move it again. So here's the page over there. So that's moved it through the pages. And then I'll just do one last move to get it into the middle of the page. Okay, so that's all the georeference data. I need to then make a terrain map from it. So if I go to landmark and create site model from source data, it will then create a terrain model based on that data. So that's the topographical lines for the site there. And if I change my perspective to different viewing angles, zoom in a little bit, I'll make it a shaded, so you can change how the topography looks. And if I change it to shaded, it will just be a bit easier to see. But you can see now that it's quite a flat site, so there's not much to see, but it's picked up on all of the topographical changes now. So I'll switch back to my top view. Now what I want to do is cut it to a circle with a radius of 100 meters, so that it's all nice and tidy, and that's the size of my study site. So if I go to 100 meters, which is 100,000 millimeters, so that circle is now that size. And I'll just move it over the top of my terrain map. So I tried to make that terrain map 100 meter diameter, so it does, 100 meter radius, so it does line up quite well to the circle. But to make it exactly line up, I select the circle and I go Control X, and then I right click on the terrain map and go to Edit Crop. And then go to Edit up the top there and go to Paste in Place. So that's pasted that circle on top of the terrain map now. And if I select that terrain map and go Delete on my keyboard, it's going to cut that information off, and it will only keep the terrain map within this area of the circle now. So if I go to Exit Site Model Crop, you'll see now that the terrain map's been trimmed to your site. So you can do this, instead of doing a circle, you could do a polyline tool, which is this one here, and you could trace the outline of your site and do that same step, and then it will just cut that map to the outline of your site. Now, the next thing I want to do is import a image of the site, and then I can use that image to locate different design elements on this topographical map. So if I open the Google Earth Pro back up, what I want to do now is take an image of the study site and line that up to the terrain map that I've just created. So I'll just need to delete these squiggly lines here. So I'll go on the left to the study area and delete that. And then take a screenshot of that same area. Now back in VectorWorks, I want to import that image file. So I'll go to File, Import Image. I'll select the PNG one, which is higher resolution. And it's only small, so I need to increase the scale of that. So I'll just zoom in a little bit. And if I go to modify, I can scale objects, and then I can scale it off that distance that I got from Google Earth Pro. So I go to these arrows there and go from the tree line to the path and tell VectorWorks that that distance should be 378 meters. And then it's going to make that a lot bigger. So if I go to the terrain map, I'll just move this way a bit. So you can see that, yeah, it's a bit bigger because it's on a bigger area. So I need to then cut out that same radius circle that matches the terrain map that I got. So if I create a circle and go to the center of my study area, and I can change the radius here on the object info palette. So I'll make that 100 meters. Just come a little bit side the map. So then I need to cut the map to match that shape. So if I select that shape and go to Control X and cut it, and then if I right click on the map and go to Edit Crop and go to Edits, Paste and Place, this then pastes the circle on top of the map, and then I can select the map area and go Delete. And then when I go to Exit the crop, it's cut that circle to that 100 meter radius. So I can then line up the circle to the center of the terrain map. And I'll just zoom in a little bit. And I can fine tune that alignment. So now I can use this image that I've imported and cropped to the same dimension as my terrain model to create different features on that terrain model, such as trees and paths and fences. And that's the end of the first video for creating the terrain map and cutting it and lining it up to the image.